If you're looking for the research, the best ball strategy for Underdog, and a quick preview of the TGL and Tigers team, that's all coming up with Byron in a little bit. You can hit the time codes for that. But I got the quick picks for the RSM Classic for you right now. I'll have all of the finalized picks and write-ups and explanation in the Mayo Media newsletter, which will drop on Wednesday. So go subscribe to that for free right now. Mayo Media on Substack. Link is down in the show notes. But I got 4 bets for you to kick off the week because that's where I'm sitting right now. Excited for the final event of the PGA Tour season. First up, Eric Cole at 40-1. That was the opener. I expect him to be popular this week. This is usually a spot where guys can break through the finish line. We have not seen it with Eric Cole as of yet, but where you do have a crossover with the Honda Classic, a place where he's played really well. This tournament is all wedges and mid-range irons and putting. That is what Eric Cole does well. So I'm going to him at 40-1. You really want approach and putting this week. Ludwig is back in the field and he's suppressing everyone's odds, which is really nice. I know Ludwig won a year ago, but he's coming off knee surgery. This is the first time he's played. Probably going to fade that, but where he's 8-1, he's making some nice odds for us down the list. So number 1 is going to be Eric Cole at 40-1. Then we're going to go to Jacob Bridgeman at 60-1. He's just been lurking and his spike putting just comes through in spades. If he can keep the iron play up with what he's been doing right now, 60-1 is a really good look number for him, even in a field of 156. After that, we're going to HighSmith. My guy, Joe HighSmith, pulled out of Bermuda last week, so keep an eye on him if he ends up WDing, but he's at 90-1 at his open right now, so a nice long shot. A guy has been lurking on leaderboards. He just needs to bring the putter, which we've seen sporadically over the swing season, and his tee to green has been off the charts good. So I like Bridgeman here, I like Bridgeman and I like HighSmith as well. And then at 110-1, you have Carson Young, was second in Mexico. His putter has been off and on. It's been more cold than hot, but when it's hot, he's gaining an average of 5 strokes putting in those events. So as long as he can keep up that accuracy, which he has, the wedge play, which he has, he's been close in a lot of these events. And we do always joke that the Carson Young will get the win before Cameron Young. This could be the week, and you might be able to get him at triple-digit odds. Coming up right now, Byron Lindeque with the best ball strategy, and then we also go over the TGL, the golf league, and the odds for that and some of the strategy and what you're going to be seeing from the TGL. And then after that, I will be breaking down the quick research, going over the course preview, all of the stats for the event, all of the modeling, and some long shots that you might want to consider this week at the RSM. Okay?
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
I want to get into these Underdog Best Ball Drafts for PGA coming out. Well, you can do them right now. They start in the new year. Use code MAYO to sign up right now and get a deposit match of up to $1,000. And the guy who's actually breaking this all down, co-host of the Fantasy Golf Degenerates and host of Back 9 Bets on Mayo Media Network, which you can watch live on Tuesday evenings. Byron Lindeque, how are you, sir?
Good and you, Mr. Pat Mayo. Happy to be back on the show. We're rocking the $100 bill shirt, not because we've won, but because we are going to win on Underdog. So it's going to be a good year ahead.
So tell everyone what you've done for PGA Best Ball, because it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I've gone, every now and then, once a year, I go deep into the weeds of something, and I have built a Underdog drafting tool called the Dog Dominator, and it helps you just kind of optimize as many golfers to play in each event of the 4 different rounds of best ball, which we'll get into here shortly, just to make drafting these guys easy, because you're going to be 150 of these things. It's going to be tough to kind of rep out a whole bunch of different lineups.
What are you seeing so far? Because this is the first year you've dug into best ball, and obviously everyone should play in the one and done. That's the easy version of all of this, but there's $100,000 at the top of it. So fantasygolfchampionships.com right now to go register, and that's almost 10% full already, and no one has even thought about it yet. You're going to miss your spot. But on Underdog, it's $50K up top. What is it, $10 per team?
$10 an entry.
Yeah, and you can play up to 150. So I'm just trying to dig in what the actual strategy is here. And I'm just kind of trial and erroring it so far. I have 2 teams. I'm trying to draft one every few days. And like, hey, I'll update my strategy here, update my strategy here. What are you seeing amongst the early returns?
So my biggest rule right off the top is it's probably going to be a lot easier to figure out who's going to play where than how well they're going to play. So that, to me, is something that I think is what this contest is all about, because you're going to have some of the best golfers who are going to suck it up this year. You're going to have some guys that didn't play so well in 2024 that could kind of shine in 2025. So just making sure you've got at least 6 participants in every tournament as many times as you can is what this really helps with. And I'm noticing some really strange people up top, like Jason Day, in fact, is actually all the way at the bottom. You can get him in your last round of drafts right now. And he's in all the signature events. He fills a lot of holes towards the end of your schedule. So some interesting names: Eric Cole, obviously, Tom Hoagie, Siwoo Kim, Corey Connors. Those are all guys with like high volume kind of schedules. It's going to be interesting to predict how guys kind of get into these elevated events as well.
Well, obviously, if you're drafting like the first 6 picks that you have or the first 5 picks that you have are probably all in the signature events anyway. Do you have to start taking guys that aren't in those tournaments to fill up the other weeks?
Yes, we were doing a draft with me and Kenny on my show, and all of a sudden he just had no Mexico Open people. It's like, Kenny, this is a tournament that's the easiest tournament of that round. There's 7 tournaments per round, and that one's the easiest of them all. So there's no finishing position points this year for this tournament. So you can have guys that are just finishing inside the top 20, like Keith Mitchell, for instance, not going to be getting a lot of finishing position points on DK. But in this situation, you're getting points for score under par. You're getting bonuses for streaks. And I think the streaks are unlimited, from what I understand, for bogeys and birdies. In DraftKings, the point scoring for a double bogey is -1 point. I think a double bogey is -5 and a triple is like -7 or something crazy. So you are getting dinged big time for bad golf, and you're getting really rewarded for going deep under par. So looking to try and fill up those events where it's really easy scoring, like the Byron Nelson Mexico Open, I think that's also where the edge is going to be this year.
So Keith Mitchell probably hits the very top of that list because he'll have to play in all those unless he somehow wins himself into some of these signature events. Who else from that list is down there? Like because what you're saying is that a part of the early season schedule, the TOC guys, they're going to be really good. It's going to be like 30 under probably, unless there's a ton of wind, but you'll want the American Express guys because that's a super low scoring tournament. And generally speaking, none of the high end guys who you need in the signature events are going to be there. And then Mexico, if they can get to like 20 under, not only are you going to build up a ton of fantasy points versus the guys playing at Bay Hill or something like that, all the signature dudes, you're also going to have a bunch of leverage on the field for that segment alone because no one else is going to have dudes in that event.
I know, because I've done a bunch of slow drafts already, and I'm starting to get to the point now where like the 5th or 6th pick I'm going with is a guy playing in Mexico. And it's disgusting because there's so many other better names available, but you have to do this, because I've drafted all the combinations already deep into the like 5th and 6th round where you got some really good signature event dudes. But you're just trying to do, I think so far I figured out, if you have Tony Finau early, I'm basically assuming he's going to Mexico. If he doesn't, I got a lot of teams that are already like looking some really weird situations, but he's the one top dude that typically goes to Mexico. So there's some speculation involved here. I've scheduled out guys to inside the top 60 of the FedEx Cup, but outside the top 50, the guys that are going to be like running hot all year, just trying to get into these signature events. Those are going to be the interesting situations. If you can speculate guys correctly and kind of have them time up perfectly to get into some round 2, round 3, round 4 signature events, that can solve a lot of holes for you as well.
Yeah, basically, if you can find Jake Knapp from the early season last year.
Boom. Exactly. So who's going to win the Mexico? Who's going to win the Amex, the Sony, Mathieu Pavon from the Farmers, like those kind of guys. And it's going to be interesting, man. You almost like trying to bet on outrights as well late in your draft because then they get into the signature events.
Yeah, and they would still pile up all those points along the way. Then you have more opportunities. I wouldn't worry too much about those guys not getting into signature events. I'm just like, isn't Bo Hostler like the best pick ever in these drafts?
Yes, tons of value because, if you're pairing him up with signature event guys, boom, you've just got that elite crappy field guy as your one spot. You're basically almost trying to draft 2 different teams in a weird way and see how that works out for you. And Bo obviously is team captain of Team B. He's always playing well and when he shouldn't.
Yeah, the B squad dudes. You want to show off the tool for a sec?
What's up? Oh yeah, sure. Let's do that, baby. So this is the Dog Dominator. It's available at my Patreon at the Model Maniac. It's also in my Twitter bio, and it is wonderful. So, Pat, let's just go ahead and do this. I'll give you pick 1, and just pick some names. We'll just run it off real quick. get 6 guys in here quickly, and then see what your schedule looks like. So we're going to be focusing on this top grid at the top here. You want as many green boxes as possible. I have the ADP down the left-hand side. So as you're drafting, it's going to show guys available in that range of ADP. I've got the actual rankings here that I've made up based off of score to par, DFS points last year, minus finishing positions, the amount of tournaments they played in, and their kind of status, based off their schedule. I've gone ahead and predicted everybody's schedules. Some guys like Scotty I don't think he's going to play in the Truist, which is the tournament before the PGA Championship. He never plays events before then. So you're going to have to find another signature event guy for round 3 if you got Scotty Scheffler in your lineup. But
what the hell is the Truist? Is the Truist Quail Hollow now?
It's going to be at the Philadelphia Cricket Club. This is how far in the weeds I've got. Yeah, because Wells Fargo is being replaced by the PGA Championship at Quail this year.
Oh, yes, that's correct. All right. So, okay. So let's try to figure this out. So this only goes, this goes through the Open, right? Then it stops?
Through the Open, 7 tournaments per round, 6 people get in a draft. Only the top guy from each draft makes it through. And then you do that again for round 1, round 2, round 3. And then there's about 250 odd people that make it into round 4, which if you are trying to optimize, you really want to have no holes in your schedule for that final round, because that's when the most people are going to be going up against you, and you need the best possibility of just racking up points.
All right, so let's pretend like we have the first pick in this draft then. Let's just put Scotty in and move on our way.
Scotty?
Because Scotty will probably play Phoenix, and he might play American Express too, because those are just tournaments that he generally plays earlier on in the season. The hardest one to fill, like Pebble, is Pebble a signature again this year?
I believe so.
So like Farmers is going to be tough.
Right, but you'd be surprised how many guys like at the end of the draft play Farmers. So you don't have to get too scared about that early on.
Okay, so let's try to figure out. So pick number 2 in that 12 range. I see a big rebound for Hovland this year, so I want to go with Hovland.
Okay. So how many rounds of golf do you think he's going to be playing this year? Because he was obviously one of the worst last year. So he's a tricky option, but he's going to be playing some good golf.
And he'll play Farmers too, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Unless there's something weird overseas for him. So I'm just trying to figure out. So now 24 and 25.
So you've got 13th pick as well still.
All right. So what do you think the better option here is? Like someone like Davis Thompson and Eric Cole and Tom Kim and even Akshay, Aaron Rai. Now that they're guaranteed to be in the signature events, does that preclude them from playing Sony and all these other ones that they normally play?
I don't know, because for like instance, Eric Cole, I kind of looked at their FedEx Cup schedule from last year and their schedule, their FedEx Cup points ranking last year, if they were inside the top 50, so that you can see if their schedule is going to change based off of their situation this year. So Eric Cole was inside the top 50 last year. He's inside the top 50 this year. I'm giving him the same exact schedule as he played last year. The man's a psycho. And in this column over here, column O, adjusted rank, as you can see, the numbers are changing up. So Eric Cole went from the 7th ranked golfer to start our little draft, and it's now jumped up to number 1. Tom Kim sitting number 2, Akshay sitting number 5. These are all based off of holes that these golfers will fill as you're going along. So the more desperate a situation looks, the more likely it's going to want to suck guys in from those tournaments you're missing.
So what happens with Tom Kim? Because he finished 51st in the FedEx Cup rankings. Does that mean he's not in the signature events?
He is. I've got him scheduled to be in the signature events for the first round, because he's currently inside the top 60. Flirting with the top 60, by the way. He's not playing too many golf tournaments in the fall, and he's sitting, I think, 58th now. So situations are looking grim for him, but he could get some sponsors invites as well. So Tom Kim, for me, is a big, big name early on.
And like Spieth would be another one who would fall probably into that bucket. If he's healthy coming off the wrist injury, then all of a sudden he's in the signature. Like, why would they have these signature events if Spieth wasn't going to be there?
Correct. I yesterday went, and so you can, in this, you can change the schedule. You can go to your projected schedule over here that I have, where I've kind of, all the black boxes are where I've manually adjusted some stuff. I went ahead and completely changed Spieth's schedule last week, or yesterday, sorry, to kind of just account for the fact that he might get invited to all 7 signature events, despite not being inside the top 60. I mean, who's the number 1 ticket sales guy outside the top 50 in the world FedEx Cup points right now? It's Spieth.
I mean, he's probably number 1 outside of Tiger.
Correct. Exactly. So, he's going to be in all these tournaments regardless. So I've kind of fixed that up a bit. he might be an ace in the hole down in the middle of the draft. Yeah.
The other kind of guys that I would look at right now are guys that are in TOC, but they're not. I mean, not like with pick number 3 on my team. But someone like Davis Riley, who is in Tournament of Champions, has his tour card, but just isn't going to sniff any of these signature events. Not that he's like good, but he and Victor Perez would be 2 I'd be looking at because they're going to have to play some of these other events. Lucas Glover, Keith Mitchell, who you mentioned, Svensson would probably be another one. Like these guys who are ranked 71st to like 100th in the FedEx Cup standing, like Kevin Yu, for example. He wins during the swing season. He's going to get into TOC, but he's probably not going to make the elevated events unless he's on like the Aeon 5, which he probably isn't going to be.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like he's perfect.
He is. And I think the perfect guys are the guys that are right in that like 70 range, trying to get into the top 10 of the next 10. Like understanding the FedEx Cup playoffs has never been more critical to making money, Pat. You know, it's something that the tour has really forced us to do. So now we have to break out the algorithms to figure these guys out. But I think that's a hot spot. Some DP World Tour guys, they get into the Open Championship guaranteed, the guys that have made it across here. And they also the first people to get priority outside the top 125.
Well, okay, so here's what I find confusing about this. Like my guy, Thirsty Lawrence, is going to get his PGA Tour card. But is he going to come over and play American Express and Farmers knowing that you have Abu Dhabi and Dubai over on the European Tour? Like he's probably still going to play those.
Yep. And I don't have that. I've got Thurston as a nice, solid option because I'm assuming he's going to play from the day, like from the Sony kind of thing. Maybe if you kind of want to go into the projected schedule and figure that out yourself, change your schedule up to reflect that, then you can do that, you know, and then his whole situation changes. He does offer tons of utility later on, though, you know, because you're also trying to find guys inside the top 50 in the world who might not be inside the top 50 of the FedEx Cup because they get into all 4 majors. And then the US Open is top 60. And then the PGA Championship is top 100. So making sure you can get into those majors is also just a nice benefit. And like guys like Lucas Glover, top 50 in the world right now. It's kind of interesting, but not inside the top 50 of FedEx.
Okay, so let's fill out the rest of this team. So we go Scotty and Victor to start. Let's go. Let's pretend like Finau falls. We'll get Finau. And then we're at 24. Let's take who plays in some of these Jabroni events. Pendrith plays in some of the Jabroni events.
Sure.
I bet you'll see Nick Dunlap at some of them as well.
And I think the younger they are, like Nick Dunlap, I'm projecting him for 19 starts. You know, he's going to be in the signatures, but going to be pumping out tons of golf.
Like Siwoo and Henley make some sense as well, solely because all the courses where they're good at are the non-signature courses. Like they'll play Honda, they'll play Sony,
yes,
Amex.
Yeah. But Henley to me is a guy I'm not clicking many times because he seems to only play just those few select tournaments and then kind of his schedule dries up quite considerably. He didn't play a lot of golf last year.
What about Harman?
Harman's solid. I think he's a sneaky option, but he's like, you can probably grab Harman a little bit later. I think he's all the way down 35th, you know, so you could almost grab him at the next go if you felt comfortable doing that.
Okay, so let's take Dunlap and Justin Thomas then.
Cool.
Just bet on a Justin Thomas rebound year and Nick Dunlap playing in some of these other events. So that gets us down to 36 and 37. From here, let's take Zalatoris. Where is he in the FedEx Cup? Like, is he in any of these events?
Yes, he is. So all of his heavy lifting happened early. Like the Arnold Palmer Invitational is, you know, that 3rd place finish there early on in the year. Since then, it's been ass, but he's top 40 in FedEx Cup points, but 60th in OWGR.
Okay, so I think that he'll need to play some of these events to get himself back into it. So let's take him, assuming like we're banking on health with him. I know his adjusted rank for you is terrible right now, but I just envision him playing more of these tournaments just to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, and that adjusted rank will be different for you if you change your schedule to reflect how you think he's going to be.
And do you think that Grazerman continues this?
Yes, I do. And yes, I think he's going to play a lot of golf. So
let's pick him here. He comes second every week.
Yes, and he's inside the top 50 in the world, by the way. So he gets into all the majors as he is right now.
Okay, so we'll go there. Then we're at 48 and 49 with our picks. Like Noren seems like a really safe pick here as someone who's not only good in playing these jabroni events, but good enough to play himself into them as well. The bigger
Sure,
events.
but he's 37th in FedEx.
Oh, is
So
he? So
he's gonna
he is in
yeah.
everything.
So a lot of his reps are going to be coming in the signature events, and towards the back end, you have got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my projected schedules with only one guy playing that tournament so far. So the best you're going to get right now is 4 if you focus specifically on those dudes.
Okay, so let's
For
go with
those
Thirsty.
events.
Let's go with Thirsty Lawrence. Let's throw him in.
Okay. So Thurston, for me, I've got him projected to play as many events as possible outside of the signatures.
Yeah, and that
including
would make sense. He'll play Honda. He'll play Mexico. He'll play
Allspa, Houston, Valero.
Yeah, like I mean, for me, he probably doesn't play January. I'd say that Farmers is probably the beginning for him. Who's like the best guy that you think plays Mexico?
So I love Jonathan Vegas. I love Nico Echeverria. I love Patton Kazaya, Patrick Rogers. These are all dudes that, or at least the first 3 are playing in signature events, or the Century, sorry.
And Patrick Rogers is, let's take Vegas.
Sure. I've been doing a lot of Vegas in this range because he's like one of these guys, doesn't finish inside the top 10 much, makes
but when
a lot
he does,
of cuts,
he wins.
but also like that doesn't winning tournaments in this format to me is nice, but it's not essential. Like it's mass volume production right now. We just want to try to make a factory of points for every single. We don't want to shut the factory down to like half capacity because the finishing position points aren't going to help you as much as you think this year.
Is Matt McCarty any good?
Yes, I've been hitting him big time in the back end. Yeah.
All right, so, let's take him in the last round.
Yeah.
So Matt McCarty won in Vegas, obviously, so he's in TOC. He had a great year on Corn Ferry, but he does not have enough status in order to get into these signature events. So he'll have to play his way in. And he strikes me as someone who's better on shorter courses anyway.
Yep. Top 50 in the world at the moment, outside the top 100 in FedEx Cup. So, I mean, that's a really nice combination of what you've got going. So you managed to salvage a few of those events late, Pat, given, what these guys' schedules could be. Still, I've really got like a few of the people that have bought this stuff are like kind of obsessed about maxing this grid out. Like how many can we get? And I think I've got to like 163, 164 of 168 potentials because you need 42 per kind of situation, right? You want 42 golfers teeing it up minimum over that 7-week stretch.
Oh, I understand. I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, so much is going to have to go into this about like what you actually project out for when they're playing, how they're going to play, that it becomes a bit tougher in that sense.
It does. And, with 150 lineups to be drafted, you've only got 10 spots. It's not like best ball in NFL where, you've got 20 spots and a bunch of more, combinations to put out there. So I'll be dropping an exposure updated version of this with exposure rates. So as you go to Underdog, you hit them with send me my email in the CSV, or you can just go manually update it. And then it changes the guy's ranking based off how much exposure you have to him and how much exposure you want to have to him. Because Keith Mitchell, Maverick McNeely, all these guys in that soft Mackenzie Hughes in this like soft range that really provide a lot of utility, I'm just clicking their name over and over again. And I'm going to have a problem eventually just having the same lineups, or if they have a bad year, those, like I don't want too much of them.
Yeah, no, that perfectly makes sense.
Yeah.
Unshare for a sec.
Sure.
All right. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the TGL. Are you ready for the TGL?
Getting there, Pat. The more I watch Ricky Fowler in a pixelated cubic version explain to me what's going on, the more thrilled I get about what's coming up here. But I read an article yesterday that said they'll be playing off of pallets of real turf.
Yes.
And to me, that's exciting. Like seeing divots fly inside is something you don't get on simulators. So
the simulator screen is so giant as well, which is really nice. So the way that it kind of works, you hit off of the tee to begin with, and then depending on where your drive goes, you hit out of the rough. It's real rough. There's real sand and there's real fairway that you have to hit up to until you get to green side, and then they kind of project it out to where the ball would land, and then they place it on the green side of some of these holes, and they're standardized holes across everything. I mean, you played in college. Do you think that this will, because they're using the real surfaces, translate a bit 1v1, because I have a pro that I sponsor around here, and he plays much better in real golf than he does in simulator golf. He's like, there are these dudes from like Norway who just dominate simulator golf because you can, it's not that you can rig it, it's just there's a very particular skill set that you can have when you're hitting off the mat and standing so close to the screen, set your TrackMan settings, like knowing all that stuff is so important. I feel like this kind of mitigates that.
You mentioned it, Pat, TrackMan settings. Whoever's the best TrackMan golfer, like calm conditions out in the dome kind of environments that these guys play without wind. I don't imagine how much wind are they gonna have giant fans blowing people off their feature. So unless there's those kind of settings, I think guys that can really dial it in on the TrackMan side of things with distance, you need to be able to at least carry your ball 300 yards. Because I went and took a look at the first hole. There's like a risk reward, like an island fairway that these guys have got going on. So you can cut a corner and hit to a fairway that's an island in the middle of a canyon, and then you've got 250, 230 into the green on a par 5, but it's kind of the reverse of Bay Hill on the actual fairway, wrapping all the way around for like 700 yards. So your next approach, if you go that route, is like 350. So Kevin Kisner could be out there all day if he doesn't like take the right avenue. You know what I'm saying? So I think you have to have at least a decent amount of carry. It seems to reward a lot of the golfers this week.
So like when we're looking at it and trying to think about what teams that we want to project, it sounds like driving distance is where we need to be.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the way to go. At least 300 plus needs to happen. I don't know how much accuracy is going to really help you this year.
So besides Rory, Xander, I guess we'd probably be trying to look at as probably the two top end guys.
Wyndham, I think that's another guy that you can take a look at. Adam Scott, sneaky long for how old he is. JT, not terrible. Hideki's got decent. How does this
Tiger? I mean, Tiger's team is like Tiger. It's Kisner. Like it's not that Tom Kim is on it. It's not the biggest bombers in the world.
No, and the only guy inside the top 50 in the FedEx Cup is Max Homa, who doesn't know if he's playing golf or changing a diaper right now. And I think this team is, it's a rough one looking at it, but you never know what kids could get up to on these putting surfaces. But yeah, I don't know. Tiger not having to walk that far, maybe he can bring the heat, but it's a rough team. I think this team could be the Panthers of the year.
Well, I mean, the odds would kind of dictate that. You can actually bet on this right now if you want to. So like the Jupiter Lynx, that's the team we're talking about. Tiger, Homa, Kisner, and Tom Kim. The short team, they're the overwhelming underdogs. I mean, this is very hard to cap, but even the books are telling us they're 12-1 in a 6-team league in the TGL. The Boston Common, 3-1. Atlanta Drive, plus 375. Los Angeles is plus 375. New York is 4-1. The Bay is 5-1. Basically, what the odds are telling us is that there's 5 teams that are basically equal, and then there's Tiger's team. And that's a team that we're talking about.
Yeah, the most hyped team ever. That's just probably gaining negative strokes, to be honest, as a team total. So tough situation there, but you never know. Simulator golf could be the ultimate playing field leveler, and Tiger could win his 40th major now, or 36th major, if they do make this a major at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty cool. Like, I like how the setup looks. I like the giant screen. I like that the fans can be compressed, and the fact that there's a real chipping area, a real green surface, and a real green that you have to go putt on as a part of your team that's live in front of everyone. That's actually really cool.
Yes, because you know how many 7-foot gimme putts I get on a simulator when I go and shoot 70 around Kapalua, drinking a few beers at my local sim. So seeing the putts actually fall, going to be important.
Introducing to you the TGL presented by SoFi Golf's newest league, live on ESPN and ESPN Plus. This is a simulator plus real chipping, real grass, and real green league featuring some of the PGA Tour's biggest players like Tiger and Rory and Xander. Only 2-hour matches inside of a stadium, and has other sporting elements like timeouts, refs, and overtime. You tee off from real grass into a screen. You might end up in the rough, or sand, real sand, and have to play it back into the screen out of there after that. They use the technology to drop it by a real green side area plus a real putting surface, getting everyone involved in the contest. This isn't your average Sunday pickup game. To learn more, visit tglgolf.com and tune into the inaugural season beginning January 7th. Keep up. It's golf. We're at the time of year where people are going to ask you what you want for a gift, and you're going to say, I don't want anything, or I don't know. Here's an answer. Doer. My Doer pants I got last week are the most comfortable pieces of clothing that I own. I got a pair of denim stretch jeans and these joggers. These joggers are amazing. You get them in a whole bunch of colors, but they don't look like joggers. So when you go out into public, I mean, we would wear crappy jogging pants out in public because they're so comfortable all the time, but then people see you're like, who is this absolute goober walking around in his joggers wearing his pajamas? No. The Doer joggers look so good. They are lightweight, they are stylish, they are relaxed, and beyond anything, they again are the most comfortable things I own. I wore them like 3 days in a row, which is a lot for a pair of pants. I absolutely love my Doers, and I know you're gonna love them too. Check out Doer's flagship stores in LA or Denver, or shop online at shopdoer.com/PME. Right now, here's the thing. My listeners, you good people listening to the Pat Mayo Experience, get 20% off your first purchase when you use my exclusive URL, shopdoer.com/PME. This is an awesome deal. Don't wait. Go get 20% off right now at shopdoer.com/PME. Let's get in some quick research for the RSM Classic. This is the final event of the PGA Tour season. There is an Asian Tour event going on this week over somewhere, Hong Kong, I think. Tom Kim is playing, and so is Patrick Reed, so is Anirban Lahiri, so is Justin Rose. So you got some Live versus PGA action going on overseas if you want to wake up at 3 in the morning and watch something. But this is it. Go to Fantasy National right now. That's where I'm going to start the research. But fantasynational.com/Mayo gets you 20% off. If you do the annual right now, you get RSM through RSM. So you get the entire complement of PGA Tour events. This week, there are 2 courses in play, the field of 156 splits. The first 2 rounds between the Plantation course, which is a par 72, which is just over 7,100 yards. Pretty easy course. Then you have the Seaside, which we're looking at right now. That's where 3 of the rounds are going to be. So one of the first 2 rounds in both weekend rounds, and the strokes gain data all comes from this. It's super short. It's a par 70. Iron/wedges and putting is what's going to get you to the top of this list. They are Bermuda grass greens. You can see the average shot distribution is pretty in close. There's not a lot of long irons coming in, which does bring a lot of the field into play. Accuracy over 70%. Greens and regulation only almost 75%. The fairways at the Plantation, at the Seaside course, are 47 yards wide, so you can kind of go bombs away, whatever you want to do. Just don't be like, I think it was Harry Hall a few years ago that had this tournament won and then just dumped it into like the one place where you can go out of bounds. There's a lot of water at this course as well, so there are little ways that it can get you, but it's a pretty easy course overall. The average driving distance versus the average tour event is down, but that's mainly because not a ton of bombers play in this event. It's all the Georgia boys, and none of those guys absolutely mash it off the tee, and you don't need to here in order to get yourself pretty close to the hole, because it's not a very long course anyway. We kind of saw a similar thing happen at Bermuda on Sunday, and even over the week. All of the guys near the top of the list were super short hitters. So that's what we have going on in terms of the course itself. When we go back and take a look at the tournament history, it's like the Mac Hughes Open, and guys who play well here tend to play well here a lot over time. You can see Mac Hughes won this event, I believe, in 2018 in a 5-man playoff, and he's come second 2 of the past 3 years as well. Denny McCarthy has 3 top 10s in his past 5 years. T. Dunks came 1 in 2020, he came 3rd last year. So, and then you have Svensson 1 in 2023, and then 2023, it got called 2023 twice, but he won, and then he came 5th. Ludwig ended up winning last year, and this is the first time we're going to see Ludwig since his knee surgery, and the only time we've seen him since the end of the PGA Tour regular season and the playoffs. I just straight up, like, take a look at Eric Cole. He's 35-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook right now. I think there's going to be 40s out there. That's who I'm betting. That's who I assume that everyone is betting this week. It seems like a proper spot for Eric Cole. I remember riding Kevin Kisner for ages, and before he got his win at this tournament, I think it was in 2017 or 2018. You kind of see some of the other players that have done well here, like Ben Coles had a very nice start here, and that makes sense. He's a high accuracy player, good wedge player. Austin Eckroat is another one. A lot of Honda Honda Classic crossover here as well. And we saw that with the Worldwide Technologies Open as well. Ryan Moore and Austin Eckroat. JJ Spawn has top 20s each of the past 3 years. He comes in at 35-1 right now. So there's a lot of decent names on the list to take a look at. Chris Kirk's actually buried a little bit down. You think that he would do better here. He's won the Honda Classic in the past. He's a Georgia guy, great with his wedges. You just need someone who can ride a hot putter. Even looking at someone like Wesley Bryan right now, based off how he has been playing coming in, isn't the most outrageous thing to think about at this point in time, because it's kind of up in the air. We've seen some long shot winners here. We've seen a lot of the cream of the crop rise as well. The cream of the crop rises, yeah. But I don't think I can bet Ludwig at 8-1. And that's what we're looking at in terms of the odds right now, which is kind of nice because it's pushing everyone else down the board. Like even someone like Siwoo is in this tournament at 28-1. Poston, he had the win in Vegas a little bit earlier this season and probably is a pretty good fit for this course. He's at 30-1. Clanton, I am Clanton. He's back. He's 30-1. You have to hope that the putting really keeps up for him. And that's, if you need someone to ride a hot putter, listen, Svensson won this tournament 2 years ago. He gained a bunch of strokes putting. That's not something he normally does, but if you can get it rolling at this course, it's pretty good. The approach play has been locked in for Clanton. We've only seen him play once in the swing. That was at the Pro Core. He came 50th, couldn't chip, couldn't putt. But overall, his putting has been pretty good, and the iron and driving is always there for him. So he's interesting, but at 30-1, it's probably going to end up being a pass for me. As I mentioned right off the top, Eric Cole is most definitely a play at 35-1. Still at 40-1 is where I'm probably going to check him out, but that's a very nice spot. Andrew Novak is another one I want to look at. He got himself into the mix, couldn't quite close. We know that people at the Pat Mayo Experience are in on Novak Nation. It's just, can he run that putter hot enough to get going? We've seen it at points in time, and it's nice to see him rebound a little bit with a top 3 finish at Bermuda over the weekend, that maybe he's back in full force. And then you just have guys who are good in this like 45-60 range. You got Kuchar and Straka and Eckroat. Like, is the layoff going to worry these guys? Eckroat coming off a win 2 weeks ago. Is that somewhere where you want to go? And even when we think about a lot of the model rankings that we're thinking about this week, like there's nothing from Bermuda, there's nothing from Mexico. So the last 2 events that these guys have played, you're not going to have any strokes gain data from them. So that's going to skew a lot of different players. I still really like Joe HighSmith. I'm going to be on him at 80-1, as mentioned before. And even Bridgeman, I'll probably end up getting there as well. I would have went with Putnam, but man, that guy really hurt my feelings last week and cost me a ton of money, being the only guy who didn't make the cut for me in my main lineup. And he rallied. He had those 4 straight birdies towards the end. Maybe he is actually in a nice rebound spot here. Now he's been pushed back down on the odds board, down to 60-1. So he's still in play for me. Again, as I mentioned during the quick picks part of this segment, that's probably a spot where I want to go to, but I'll have all of the finalized picks in the newsletter coming out on Wednesday with all of the write-ups. So this is the strokes gain model that I'm looking at. Glover, Gim, Sig, Seamus Power, Joe HighSmith are the top 5. Just an overall strokes gained, waiting out approach, putting, and off the tee more than around the green. After that, KH Lee, Woodland, Spawn, Berger, Mac Hughes at 10 in the MCM as well, which I've already built out. But I do want to go to my models, just manage them for a second, and take a look at the RSM if I have that built out, which I assume that I do. It says RSM, actually trusted. Well, let's trust it. Let's get that loaded up right now. We'll refresh the page and get to the RSM model for the week, and you can take a look at it when I load it up here. So we got the RSM Classic. We'll load in that model right now and see what we're looking at. And when I go to edit the model, you can see approach 35% off the tee, 10 opportunities gain 20%, 15% for 400 to 450 yard par 4s, fairways at 10%, around the green at 5, greens and regulation at 5. I do have par 5s in there at 0% just because I like looking at it sometimes as I build out the table in front of me. Again, fantasynational.com/Mayo in order to do this. So in the model rankings over the past 12 rounds, you got Glover, Clanton, Gim, Woodland, Bramlett is the top 5. Then you got Lee Hodges, Nico Echeverria, the Smother Man, Michael Kim, Bud Colley. Then you're into some of the guys that I like. You got Spawn, HighSmith, Damon, Mac Hughes. Berger is still up there, but I don't know how many times I can keep going back to Daniel Berger and be like, oh yeah, he's just going to shoot 72 in the first round and absolutely take himself out of this tournament. Lanto, Carson Young might be in a nice rebound spot right now. He was kind of riding high for a little bit, but this is a nice tournament for him. Really dominates in opportunities game. We just need him to get his putter back to where it was. I don't have putting in this right now. Maybe we should go and put that in. Let's go put in strokes game putting, at least in the short term, to see who ends up getting up there and to see if this adjusts it at all. Because we're just looking at primarily at ball strikers now. We'll weight that at, let's say, 12% in the model to see if that really shakes anything up. And it doesn't really. It bumps up Mac Hughes. It bumps up Joe Highsmith to 6 and 7. Spawn now coming in at number 11 in these rankings. You can see with JJ Spawn and Carson Young at tournaments where we're actually seeing the strokes gain total. With JJ Spawn, he's dipped back down. He was pretty good at Zozo. Came in 6th at that tournament in terms of strokes gain overall, so he must have putted well. Had a nice run, but you're not seeing a ton of spike from him. He did it Rocket Mortgage. He did it John Deere. And even 2.8, probably not enough to win this tournament like he did at the 3M, but the approach in driving has been so good. Then you take a look at someone like Carson Young, and it's gone the other way for him, where it's a lot of red. However, when you see that he is gaining strokes putting, and I assume that he did that pretty well when he came second 2 weeks ago in Mexico, that 5.9, 4.3, those are the type of spike putting weeks that you're going to need in order to win this tournament. So I do like Carson Young a little bit at this spot. He's 100 to 1. So you can kind of load up on a few of those guys this week. You know, Denny McCarthy keeps himself in this every single year just by putting well. So I would be not necessarily throwing out bad putters, but I would be giving extra merit this year to the good putters as well. So that's what it looks like over the past 12 rounds. Let's push this out a little bit, take a look at a more macro view, a longer term, and take a look at the past 36 rounds for this. Gim ends up crawling to number 1 in the modeling, and that makes a ton of sense because when he putts well, we know that his irons and his driving are really good. You can see the strokes gained approach for him is off the charts good. He hasn't dropped strokes on approach since the Houston Open, which was in the end of March. March 31st was the last time he played in a tournament where he actively dropped strokes around the green. Now, his off the tee had been going down, but it's back up a little bit. The chipping has been pretty good. He just continues to reel off cuts made, and the putting can come around from time to time. Now, can he do it at this tournament in particular? Well, he gained strokes putting at the Honda Classic. That was on Bermuda. He did that again at the Players Championship. That's on Bermuda. He had the POA, I mean, that's more POA overseed Bermuda with anything else, but he did it in Phoenix as well, which are similar types of greens, albeit in a different part of the country. You can see at the RSM, he does have one top 20 finish in his career. That was in 2020. Has never gained on the greens at the Seaside course, though, which is somewhat troublesome if we're trying to take a deeper look at these things, but he is number 1. He's 40 to 1. Probably don't love that as much. I like Eric Cole better in that spot. So over the past 36 rounds, new names that jump up into the mix: Keith Mitchell, Brian Harmon. We know Mitchell can do it. He's won at the Honda Classic before. He really seems to have gone into the tank a little bit. I know we just discussed him as a part of the best ball drafts on Underdog, but you know, after should have won the Sanderson Farms, which is another tournament that Mackenzie Hughes has won. We can take a look at that as well to see some names that might pop up. He's just been in the tank. Utah sucked. Vegas sucked. Mexico sucked. It just might be, maybe there's a familiar spot for him. Maybe it's a really nice place where he can get into it, but no real great results. A 12th in 2021, a 14th in 2019. Nothing great from Keith Mitchell. Not really the course where I would probably want to go to him. Kevin Yu won the Sanderson. Hostler was there. Glover was there. Glover's been playing really well throughout the entire swing season without actually notching a win. So maybe it's finally his time to do something. You see Bridgeman was up there. Power, Patton Kazire, Gary Woodland, Ben Coles, and Eric Cole finished inside the top 20 as well. Novak Nation, there he is at number 23 after a bad first round at the Sandersons. So there are a few guys you could potentially go to here if you feel like that is a crossover. Ludwig comes in at number 8 in the rankings now. Kuchar's up to number 7. Harmon at number 6. It brings in more of the mid-season and earlier to late season data from the strokes gained overall. Roger Sloan at 11, Shez at number 12, Kelly Craft, Carson Young, Nick Hardy. There's Ben Coles, there's Novak, there's Svensson, Damon Smotherman, Power, Rico, hey, Comes in at 60 to 1. Maybe it is time for old Rico, Uncle Rico, to get back in the mix here. You just always wonder if he can bring the putter. It's been pretty good, not great. You need him to have one of those weeks. Bridgeman's the guy, though, at his number right now, just continues to play great golf, continues to make a ton of putts along the way, and that's really what we're looking for right now. Maybe Lauer as well. I don't know how Lauer has played here in the past. And Mark Hubbard did finish T3 T3. He can finish inside the top 5 in Bermuda, and we know that he can run the hot putter as well. So you can see with Lowry, he has 2 top 10 finishes during the swing, and he does putt the lights out. You hope that maybe he can keep it going, but it's just never materialized for him at this tournament. He's played it each of the past 3 years, has missed the cut every single time, has not gained on approach at all in these tournaments, and while that's something that he has been doing lately, it's just hard to go back and look at his history and know that he has not been the most consistent player week over week. So I do worry a little bit of Lauer that maybe that either there's some fatigue going to set in with him, but he has been the best player overall over the past 36 rounds on 400 to 450 yard holes. That's more of his wheelhouse. Now, a lot of that has to do with putting, but that's really where we're shaking out right now. From down on the board, if we just take a look at who are the longest odds guys who have the highest ranking, Sloan and Reavie and Kelly Craft are all 300 to 1. They rank inside the top 15 of this tournament. Again, no Bermuda, no Mexico. The last 2 events factored into this in terms of any of the strokes gain data of approach, putting, off the tee, around the green. None of that stuff factors in. Ben Cole's at 170 to 1 is actually a pretty nice gain here. So he's first in fairways gained over that time. He's 10th in approach. He's second in greens and regulation. He just really can't putt. That becomes a problem. But he's 170 to 1. This is probably something you should expect. Russell Knox actually rates out pretty well too. Probably wouldn't go that route. Lanto kills me around the greens. Even in tournaments where around the greens don't matter, he finds a way to chip himself out of tournaments. Kevin Yu, probably not a bad look either. I know that it's unlikely that he wins twice over the course of a swing season, but he's 110 to 1. Bridgeman at 60, Kazire at 100. You have Carson Young down at 100 as well. So there's a lot of long shots in play this week for the RSM Classic if you can find the guys at the top that you really like, the obvious names. So superstars and super scrubs for DraftKings on the betting board, it might be the same way as well. That ends off the PGA season, but we will have more best ball coverage and doing drafts, season previews, and everything for the PGA Tour season as we ramp back up for the Tournament of Champions in January. So we're going to have a lot of fun shows. Feinberg and I will be back talking some golf again along with all the regular guests that you like, and Byron and I will continue to do these best ball breakdowns for Underdog. So use code Mayo if you want to sign up now and get in on that action. Fantasy Golf Championships for the Giant one and done with $100,000 to first this year, $1 million guaranteed in the prize pool. Please go sign up and play for that now. Listen, if we fill it again, it's just more money for next year, which is great news. And we're not expanding the field by all that much. So the spots are going to dry up pretty quickly. Almost 10% full already, and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. So that's kind of crazy to think about. So that'll do it for me. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!